Before Venom was Venom, he was something else entirely. A costume. A gift. The best thing that ever happened to Spider-Man, or so it seemed at the time. This is the story of how a living alien symbiote crawled onto Peter Parker's body during a war on another planet, and slowly turned the most beloved hero in Marvel into someone even he didn't recognize. It all starts far from Earth, during the original Secret Wars in 1984, when the Beyonder pulls dozens of Marvel's heroes and villains onto a patchwork planet called Battle World to fight for his amusement. Spider-Man's costume is torn to shreds in the fighting, and with no way to repair it, he goes looking for something to wear. He finds a strange machine that promises to create a new costume out of thin air. He steps inside, the machine activates, and out comes a sleek black suit unlike anything he's worn before. At first, it feels like an upgrade in every possible way. The suit is self-repairing, endlessly stretching to create pouches and pockets on command, and organic enough that Peter doesn't need his mechanical web shooters anymore. It produces webbing directly from his body, seemingly limitless compared to the cartridges he used to have to refill by hand. It responds to his thoughts almost instantly, changing shape the moment he imagines a new configuration. It even keeps itself perfectly clean, no matter how much dirt or blood gets on it during a fight. For a hero who's spent years stitching together a torn costume by hand between battles, this feels like a miracle dropped right into his lap. During the rest of the Secret Wars conflict, Peter starts to notice just how much of an edge the suit is giving him. His reflexes feel sharper. His punches land harder than they should. In one skirmish, he takes a hit that should have cracked a rib, and instead he barely feels it, like something absorbed the impact for him. He starts relying on it instinctively, without ever really asking why a costume would behave like this in the first place. But almost immediately, there are signs something isn't right. The suit seems to have a will of its own. It reacts to Peter's emotions in ways ordinary fabric never could, tightening when he's angry, moving on its own while he sleeps, sometimes bonding to him so completely he can't take it off even when he wants to. On more than one occasion he tries to physically peel it away before bed and simply can't get a grip on the edge of the mask, like it's decided for him that it isn't coming off tonight. He starts noticing small, unsettling details too, hair appearing under the mask that wasn't there before, a strange overprotectiveness the suit seems to have toward him whenever he's in danger, a subtle sense that it's not just responding to him, it's watching him, learning him. When Peter finally makes it back to Earth after the events of Secret Wars, he keeps wearing the suit, completely unaware of what he's actually bonded to. His friends notice the change before he does. The Human Torch is one of the first. During a Fantastic Four team-up, he watches the suit's texture ripple in a way no fabric should, and jokes about it at first, assuming it's some kind of new experimental tech Peter picked up. Peter brushes it off the same way, more amused than concerned. Reed Richards, ever the scientist, becomes suspicious almost the moment he sees it up close. Something about the material doesn't match anything he's ever studied. He asks Peter for a sample, and Peter, still trusting the suit completely, agrees without hesitation. Reed runs it through every test in his lab, comparing it against every known fabric, every known organism in his database, and finds nothing that matches. What he discovers is horrifying. The suit isn't fabric at all. It's alive. A living organism that has been slowly merging with Peter's nervous system since the moment he put it on, feeding off his adrenaline, gradually building a genuine bond of dependency between them, the same way a parasite adapts to a host it intends to keep permanently. Reed's warning is blunt and immediate. This thing intends to bond with him permanently, and if it succeeds, Peter Parker may cease to exist as a separate person entirely, his mind slowly folded into whatever the creature actually is. The suit isn't just clothing pretending to be alive. It's a parasite wearing the shape of a costume, and it has been getting exactly what it wants the entire time Peter thought he was in control. What makes this story so effective is watching Peter's own reaction shift from denial to real fear. He loves this costume. It's made him stronger, faster, more efficient as a hero than he's ever been. Giving it up means going back to torn fabric and mechanical web shooters that jam at the worst possible moments. back to nights spent sewing a costume together with a needle and thread just to be ready for the next fight. So even after Reed's warning, Peter hesitates, and that hesitation is exactly the emotional core of this whole arc. It's not really a story about a monster attacking a hero. It's a story about a hero slowly realizing that the thing making him feel powerful is quietly consuming him, one convenience at a time. There's also a quieter, more personal cost building underneath all of this. Peter starts losing sleep. He starts snapping at the people closest to him without meaning to: Mary Jane, Aunt May, even his own teammates. Small moments of irritability that don't feel like him at all. Mary Jane is one of the first to say something out loud, telling him flatly that he's not himself lately, that something about him feels off in a way she can't quite name. Peter brushes her off too, the same way he brushed off Reed and the torch, because admitting something is wrong would mean giving up the one thing making his life as Spider-Man easier than it's ever been. It isn't until later that anyone realizes the suit has been influencing his moods the entire time, feeding on his anger and amplifying it, rewarding aggression with a rush of strength that makes violence feel good in a way it never should. That reward loop starts showing up in his fights too. Where Peter used to hold back against low-level criminals, pulling punches and going for webbing instead of force, he finds himself hitting harder than necessary, sometimes needing a conscious effort to stop himself before he goes too far. After one particular encounter where he nearly does real damage to a mugger who was already down, Peter stands there afterward genuinely shaken by his own behavior, unable to fully explain to himself why he lost control like that. Eventually, the truth becomes undeniable. During a battle, Peter is knocked unconscious, and instead of staying inert like ordinary clothing, the suit takes over completely on its own, protecting him, fighting for him, moving with an intelligence and instinct that has nothing to do with Peter's own reflexes anymore. Witnesses later described seeing Spider-Man fight with a ferocity and coordination that didn't look like him at all, finishing the confrontation before Peter even regains consciousness. When he wakes up and realizes what just happened, the horror sets in fully for the first time. This isn't a costume he's wearing. He's the one being worn. That's when Peter goes back to Reed with real urgency, and Reed lays out exactly what they're dealing with. This organism, whatever it is, doesn't have a simple off switch. Cutting it, burning small sections, none of it works, because it simply regenerates from what's left, the same way it repairs tears in seconds during a fight. The only method Reed's tests suggest might actually work involves overwhelming it with intense sonic vibration combined with extreme heat, enough to force a full separation rather than just damage a piece of it. The final break comes when Peter, badly wounded and desperate, retreats to the one place he knows has the tools to help him, the Fantastic Four's headquarters, and specifically the bell tower housing a massive sonic-emitting machine originally built for an entirely different purpose. He knows by this point that loud sound and extreme heat are two of the only things that visibly hurt the creature bonded to him. In one of the most iconic sequences in Spider-Man history, he activates the device and forces the symbiote to physically separate from his body, screaming as it's torn away from him after weeks of feeding on his mind and body. The creature recoils from the sound and heat, shrinking back into a small, wounded mass on the floor of the tower, while Peter collapses nearby, completely drained. For the first time in a long while, Peter Parker stands alone in his own skin, and the sheer relief on his face in that moment says more than any dialogue could. But separation isn't the end of the story, it's only the beginning of a much bigger one. The symbiote doesn't simply die once it's removed. It survives, weakened but very much alive, driven by an instinctual need to bond with a host again as quickly as possible. Locked away by the Fantastic Four for a time, it eventually escapes containment, slipping out in search of exactly what it lost: a body, a mind, a way back into the world. It eventually finds its way to Eddie Brock, a disgraced journalist whose entire career collapsed after a story he published turned out to be based on a false confession, a story Spider-Man himself indirectly exposed as wrong. Eddie blames Peter Parker for everything that followed: his ruined reputation, his broken marriage, the complete unraveling of the life he'd built. He's standing in a church, at what he considers close to the lowest point of his life, when the symbiote finds him. where Peter fought the bond every step of the way, questioning it, resisting it, ultimately tearing it off his body, Eddie welcomes it completely, sharing his rage, his hatred, his desperate need for revenge with a creature that feeds on exactly those emotions. It doesn't need to fight for control over Eddie the way it fought for control over Peter, because Eddie hands that control over willingly, almost gratefully. Two damaged psyches merge into one, and what was once Spider-Man's costume becomes something the world has never seen before. That fusion becomes Venom, not a villain born from nothing, but a direct consequence of a story that started as something as simple and innocent as a hero needing a new set of clothes on an alien battlefield. Every terrifying thing Venom would go on to do traces back to this moment, an alien organism that learned exactly what it needed to become a person by studying Spider-Man first, absorbing his memories, his fighting style, even his knowledge of Peter's real identity, then finding someone willing to let it in completely instead of fighting back. It's worth pausing here on what the symbiote actually is, because later Marvel stories would go back and fill in details that weren't fully clear at the time. It's eventually revealed to be one of an entire species of similar creatures, an alien race that survives by bonding with hosts across the galaxy, most of them far more monstrous and far less selective than the one that found Peter. This particular one wasn't randomly assigned to him. It was drawn to him specifically during that battle on Battleworld, sensing a host with exactly the traits it needed: strength, resilience, and a moral code strong enough to keep it functioning without immediately destroying itself the way a purely violent host eventually would. In a strange way, the symbiote chose well the first time. It just didn't expect its host to ever say no. That detail recontextualizes a lot of what happens afterward. This wasn't simple bad luck or a random accident of alien technology. The suit picked Peter Parker on purpose, the same way it would later choose Eddie Brock on purpose, adapting its approach each time based on exactly what kind of person it was dealing with. With Peter, it tried patience, comfort, gradual dependency. With Eddie, it didn't need to bother, because Eddie was already standing at the door, waiting to let something in. Looking back at this arc now, what stands out isn't the horror element, even though it's genuinely unsettling for a mainstream superhero comic from the 1980s. It's how quietly the story builds its tragedy. Peter never fights a supervillain in a cape here. He fights his own comfort, his own convenience, his own reluctance to give up something that made his life easier, right up until it nearly cost him everything that made him who he is: his relationships, his identity, his sense of control over his own body and mind. The Black Suit Saga remains one of the most influential origin stories in Marvel history, not just because it created one of the greatest villains in the franchise, but because of what it says about Spider-Man himself. Even at his most exhausted, most vulnerable, and most tempted to take the easy path, he's still the one hero willing to tear away the thing that makes him powerful the moment he realizes what it's actually costing him. That single choice, made in a bell tower with nothing but sound and heat and sheer willpower, is the difference between the story of a hero who almost lost himself, and the story of a villain who never even tried to fight back. If you enjoyed this breakdown of where Venom truly began, drop a like and subscribe, because next time, we're going even deeper into the Marvel Universe.